discussion with our panelists. So I helped organize this event with the Director of Student Activities for the School of Social Sciences, Teresa Neighbors. A number of groups contributed to the event, specifically UCI's Center for the Study of Democracy, the Department of Political Science, the Vice Chancellor's Office for Student Affairs, the Associated Students of UCI, and Associate Graduate Students of UCI also were event co-sponsors. Andrew Gonzalez, Associate Director of the Social Science Academic Resource Center, is also a contributor, and his center is videotaping this event. We hope to upload this event to the internet in segments later. The summit consists of 4 UCI students who will give us some insights into their political views concerning the 2012 presidential election. The panel is moderated by Alexander Hefner, whom we brought from New York City to ask questions of the student panelists. Hefner's a journalist. He's a broadcaster for public affairs radio show and blogger. He was a student in 2008 and covered the presidential election. He's written news articles about elections and politics ever since, and his writing has appeared in the New York Times, the Washington Post, and other outlets. Hefner told me at lunch that PBS has asked him to help produce a segment on the youth and politics for their network. Hefner will serve as our own Jim Lehrer, but hopefully a little more lively, a little more commanding than what we witnessed in the first presidential debate moderated by Lehrer. Tomorrow, you should know that there's the second presidential debate. Candy Crowley from CNN is going to be the moderator in the debate between Romney and Obama. So Hefner will have to channel up his best Candy Crowley for us folks at UCI. The panelists here today are not here to debate. They're here to tell us what they think about the candidates Romney and Obama and the issues. We in the audience are here respectively to hear them out. Their opinions are important to us at the university. Students are generally not considered to be important political actors in presidential elections. However, their opinions on the direction of national leadership are increasingly important. Countries facing the challenge of addressing the transition of leadership from the aging baby boomers to today's young people. This transition has created a number of new policy concerns, even policy crises, as we think about how to pay for Social Security and Medicare in the future as the baby boomers continue to retire. National security is another concern. Economic prosperity is another. While the old think they have all the answers, it won't really matter because the young, ready or not, are the nation's next set of voters and leaders. Ethnic and racial diversity of the UCI student population makes this summit, I think, a special event. Not only are students newcomers to the political scene who are facing challenging times, but California students represent the new face of America, a more ethnically diverse America. Race and ethnic issues remain part of the American political landscape, and some say they're evident today in the contest between Romney and Obama. So let's begin what should be a landmark, memorable event for UCI, the UCI Student Summit on the 2012 presidential election. So if we could just welcome the panelists and thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Tate, and thank you to the audience and also to my panelists to my right and left. To just briefly introduce myself again, currently I'm working on a project for PBS's Need to Know television program, and I'm happy to follow up with you in the audience with a link to my first report, which went live last week, and for your information, the next report will go live later this week. But I want to ask my panelists here to briefly introduce themselves and describe their major and perhaps where they're from, and then we'll get started. And of course, their name.
Hi everyone, my name is Sana Khan. I'm from around here. I'm from Long Beach. I'm studying political science and international studies at UCI, and I'm very passionate about politics.
Hi, my name is Vijay Tengadi. I'm local to Irvine, studying computer science, and I'm a fourth-year senior.
Hi, I'm Sasha Severwall, and I'm a fourth-year Women's Studies and International Studies double major, and I'm from Fullerton, California.
Good afternoon, my name is Jose Quintana, and I am a fifth-year political science and sociology double major, and I am from Santa Ana, California.
And I know that in addition to your academic concentrations on campus, you all have expressed interest in aspects of public discourse and are involved in organizations here on campus that certainly animate your political and personal views. But let's begin by talking about the mood on campus. And that's the focus of the PBS program that I'm working on. But it's also a topic that's hotly debated both in newspapers and on television in terms of just how engaged young people are after the historic 2008 presidential election. So I wanted to ask you all, anyone feel free to jump in, what's the mood like on this campus right now with respect to the election specifically? Is there a high degree of engagement? Do you sense apathy? And specifically with respect to the two candidates in major parties, how engaged do you find Democrats versus their Republican counterparts on campus? Anyone feel free to jump in. Sure, Sam.
I think the mood on campus ranges from either apathetic to anxious. Not specifically regarding the presidential election, but in this upcoming election, we do have several propositions on the ballot, and one of them is very important for the continuance of the public education system as we know it. So the students I've talked to have been very anxious about that, but I'm also sensing a lot of apathy because they feel like things haven't quite changed in the past 4 years, and they feel sort of lost in a polarized discourse. Going on to the college Democrats, college Republicans, those who do have a strong party affiliation are active and they do have a strong voice on campus. We live in an interesting part of California. Orange County is a very Republican, very conservative county, but we're on a college campus, which typically means more left-leaning. So we have a great organizations on campus that represent all political spectrums, and they're all very active and engaged with each other and with the campus.
I'd like to add that this year, in terms, comparatively speaking, this year compared to 2008, the level of interest overall among people within the ages of between, I'd say, 18 to 24 has kind of tapered off a little bit. And I suspect that it's due to the fact that in 2008, Obama was a newcomer to the, or at least a relative newcomer to the political scene, and he was fresh, and people were very interested in what he had to say. The ideas were new, and we were heading into a deep economic recession that provided the fodder for Obama to carry such a huge part of the electorate. This year, the difference is, like Sana said, that a lot of younger people perceive a gap between what Obama said on the campaign trail in 2008 and what he's actually accomplished in his 3.5 years in office.
So let me just interrupt you so I can ask a specific question based on what you're saying. Where do those gaps exist according to your conversations with young people on this campus?
Well, the gaps exist in many areas, specifically the economic realm. There's a lot of anxiety amongst young people, especially as they get closer to their graduation date, in terms of, can they find a job? How's the economy? Should I stay in school for an additional year? Should I go to graduate school? So all these concerns have kind of accumulated throughout the student population into something of a, I guess, a little bit of discouragement by students on the part of supporting Obama this time around. I do find that there's still strong support for Obama and not as strong support for Mitt Romney, but that kind of, the support is not as fervent as it was in 2008.
So based on the economic argument that you're making in terms of young people's concerns being more dire and the assistance that they might have expected from the administration not coming to fruition in precisely the way they might have imagined, BJ, I know you were saying to me that you see stickers and Obama t-shirts and paraphernalia on campus. do you think that based on your conversations with friends and classmates and political leaders in the state, do you think that there are those gaps, or do you think that there is more of a cohesive Obama supporting coalition that still exists?
I think regardless of anything, whether this area of Orange County or this university has a more left or right position on any of the stance or which candidate to go with, I think there will always be a gap, and that the gap is necessary. There has to be that gap for any of a million reasons. Now, if you look at how the students have changed, I'm really glad that the students have changed. Speaking from one particular perspective, I remember 4 years ago I was a high school senior, and that's why I should turn my phone off. 4 years ago I was a high school senior, and I remember that 80% of the class had their senior quote, "We're over it," and they were apathetic to nearly everything that didn't involve graduation. And that 20% that carried the entire school and inspired the school to be more inclined to be politically active, they came here and they evolved, they became more mature, and you can see the difference is that 4 years ago, when you're looking at 18-year-old young adults, they're very much inclined to go with their family's perspective, their parents' perspective, because they haven't experienced what is out there, whether that is just in high school or in college or in their work or anything else.
I also want to add that I feel that apathy on campus is relative to what the issue is. So if issues pertain to students, such as sort of like government assistance in terms of federal Pell Grants or financial assistance, I think that those issues are the ones that students are most concerned about because they directly affect them. And so I think that, so speaking of this gap, I think the gap sort of subsides when there is a relative impact on the student themselves or the youth voters, because these issues do directly affect us.
And that's exactly correct. Majority of students have something else going on in their lives, whether it's clubs or educational, whatever it may be, even a job, multiple jobs. Everyone is very busy and very good at what they do, and they're very much inclined to be the best in what they do. So the gap really exists as the apathetic people are either too busy or they're too shy to express their opinion. And those who do express their opinion, well, a couple of them are outspoken. I'll speak quite a bit here. But the thing is, those that do express their opinion, they're very much so associating their opinion with one particular thing that relates to what they are doing, whether it's finding a job or grad school, like you said.
I'd like to add one last thing to that. As opposed to 2008, in 2012, I found, just because I generally like to, my friends and people that I meet, I generally like to talk about politics, just as a topic. And in 2008, I found that self-identification as Democrat was really, really high. And this time around, a lot of students that I speak to, a lot of my friends I speak to about politics, and I talk to them about the election and things like that, I find a lot more I don't know, or independent, or even Republican. So I think the level of association with the Democratic Party as kind of among young people has shrunk a little bit. Not a significant amount, but just it's shrunk a little bit.
Before we move on from this topic of which young people are most galvanized, excited, attentive to the political process, I wanted to ask if any of you have any specific grip on which demographics, this is a diverse campus, which demographics are more inclined to participate this cycle. I know, Jose, you said that you were in school in 2008 on this campus, right?
No, it was a community college student.
But still a campus.
Yes.
And maybe you'd have some insight. Obviously, in out west and the southwest, the Hispanic vote is going to be decisive in a whole host of battleground states. But on this campus, and this audience and panel are very diverse. Do you find that one subset of the millennial group is, and this is a question I don't know, but to everyone, but one subset is likelier to be engaged, or particular subsets?
Yeah.
And it may be the student who's receiving the Pell Grant, It may be a particular ethnic or racial group, but
Yeah, along those lines, I definitely do think that Hispanic voters, or young Hispanic voters, are staying consistently engaged because, for instance, in 2009, President Obama passed the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act, which, among many other things, provided $14 billion in funding for the federal Pell Grant program for an annual increase of $400 to the maximum amount you can receive. And Hispanic college students are very heavily, a lot of Hispanic college students do qualify for federal Pell Grant assistance. So that, to a lot of my Hispanic friends, has meant it's kind of a boon to their prospects in college. An additional move on the part of President Obama has been to impose a moratorium on the deportation of young, undocumented persons in the United States, especially when they have no criminal record and when they are in school. So,
and you feel like acknowledgement of those facts, and that's important for us to hone in on, those facts are observed and understood on this campus, not just trickling down to the activists, but to the student body, let's say the Hispanic student body, for instance. For instance, the fact that the president supports the DREAM Act and various forms of it states, do you feel like Hispanic voters are aware of the consequence of that kind of legislation?
yeah, absolutely. It's a very prevalent topic among the Hispanic community that President Obama has been supportive. If not in an ideal way, he's been at least as supportive as he can be within the framework that he can work, that he has to work in with a divided Congress and a opposition party which is sticking very, very strongly to its guns. So I think the Hispanic community is very aware of the strides President Obama has made to represent their interests.
Great.